Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked again? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something impossible? When they spoke to a ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left you somehow unsatisfied. My name is Chris, and this is my colleague Jack, and we are senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect those same creatures from the world. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing fantastic at home. I will never know because you cannot reply. Who can reply is Jack. Jack, how are you doing today?
Do I want to reply? Yeah, no, I'm doing quite good, thank you very much. Yeah, the days are going quite well, and work has been not too stressful lately.
Well, that sounds good so far.
Yeah, can't complain. How about yourself?
Oh, well, I'm fine mostly. It's just I'm a bit melancholic because, in today's topic, a few sad memories came back, and I've been thinking about things and wrestling with my own mortality and stuff like that. And yeah, it's always a good time having an existential crisis or two.
Well, we're sunshine and rainbows on this podcast. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, what's got you like this? You haven't yet told me what the topic of today's podcast is going to be.
Haven't I?
No.
Well, it's another famous one, and we're going into mild spook territory.
Oh.
And I guarantee you have heard of it, and most of our viewers will. It is the Banshee.
Oh, yes, the Banshee. Yeah.
The Banshee.
Again, another one I've not had to handle or deal with myself. But as you say, very famous. Everyone at the CCI, pretty much everyone has always heard of the Banshee at some point. So,
at the very least, people have heard the expression "scream like a banshee." So
yes, at the very least,
you know at least one thing about the Banshee.
Definitely.
Why don't we start as always with a name? And I'm gonna apologize as always for any pronunciation. It's just because I'm stupid, not because I'm an asshole. I mean, I am an asshole, but that's unrelated. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Moving on. It's from Old Irish, obviously. It's two words, Banshee. Ban is the woman, and she is a word for the hills or mounds that are common in Ireland.
Yeah.
And those are kind of there's a lot of mythology attached to these mounds, and so this is kind of the woman of the fairy mound is the common translation for that.
Really? I've never heard that one myself.
Yeah, they're usually classified as fairy creatures, actually.
Oh.
They're often depicted as ghosts, which is kind of appropriate, but also not. It's kind of a complicated one.
Yes.
They're also sometimes known as the Banquinche, which means the keening woman.
Okay, I was thinking it was like I thought a banquet was a full spread. Sorry, I couldn't help that.
Well, that is. Wait, I'm just searching for the delete podcast button.
Don't worry, I've already got it up.
Anyway, you might be asking, apart from food, what keening is, because at least I was not familiar with that. And just as a general overview, I'm not an expert on the Irish tradition, but from my understanding, it was basically the tradition of a kind of professional crying and lamenting of the deceased at funerals.
Ooh.
And it's a very long tradition. It is, as the internet tells me, almost extinct today, but it was pretty common for very long, and until, I don't know, I think the 18th century, 19th century, something along that line. So a keener would be someone you hire for a funeral. Usually it'd be women, and they would kind of if you imagine a bard singing a song about someone, it's kind of like that. They sing these songs that lament the death, but also often includes details about the life of the deceased and their family tree and their accomplishments and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a
professional mourner, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I've seen like the jokes. You know, there's always like the old films or the films depicting things like the French Revolution or something, and someone's going to be guillotined, and things like Monty Python. I'm pretty sure they've probably done it. If not, I've seen it in a few things. But there's always a joke of, well, it is £5. Go and pretend to care about me. That kind of thing. Want to hear some proper crying, some proper wailing. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far off. It's just if you do it long enough, anything can become a legitimate tradition and
a legitimate trade.
Yeah, and they would kind of fulfill this role, and they would be kind of the leaders. Sometimes people would join in the morning, and they would kind of be like they would kind of lead people through the funeral, more or less, as far as I understand it. But again, I'm not a historian, so take all of that with a grain of salt.
Hey everyone, guess what? We're not professional historians or mythologists.
Who'd have known? We tend to say a lot of things that we are not. We should at some point get into saying what we actually can do.
Yeah. Well, again, like, at being who we are, being senior wardens and whatnot, we don't tend to care too much about the history, if I'm perfectly honest. When you got something with big scary teeth bearing down on you, the history of it is not really that important unless it's going to stop those teeth coming at you.
Exactly.
That's the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
But we know for you guys, you would love to know the history. You'd love to know where it's come from because, well, we tell you the truth behind the myth.
Very true. And it's not always that it's not interesting. Actually, a lot of these histories are very interesting, but it's just we handle so many of these creatures, there's just no way we can be an expert on the history of everything, basically.
No, I mean, I do it about now before we talk.
Yeah. All right. Back from keening to the topic at hand, the Banshee. It is, most people probably know them as some kind of ghosts. Some say that banshees are actually children who died before being baptized, and that's probably just the church being the church again. We've talked about that particular nugget in different circumstances before on the podcast. They kind of tend to stretch the truth a bit, putting it mildly.
Yes, they do tend to have there tends to be an agenda.
Yeah. There also was the idea that these keeners, these women, would, if they were not doing a good job, they could become banshees after death.
Really?
So that was an idea that was apparently around among that profession.
I mean, that's a bit of professional difficulty, isn't it?
It is.
Do good at your job, or
imagine the pressure.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. And, personally, I do not believe in this type of thing, really, that it's actual people that have come back. But, I can also not completely say that there's no ghosts, because there are a lot of properties that we traditionally associate with ghosts, such as, appearing and disappearing and, dubious amount of corporeality. Is that a word?
I don't know if it's a word, but it makes sense.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and they're also able to shapeshift to a degree.
Yeah.
They do not. They will probably not turn into a cupboard or a dog, but they will generally stay human shape. But you know, there's a lot of variance within that, and you know, sometimes they look young, sometimes they are old hags, and everything in between. Sometimes they're described as towering over people, but often they are described as being quite small, and that is probably mostly because of their association with, you know, the fairy origin.
Oh, I genuinely didn't know that they had a fairy origin, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, apparently they are fairy spirits, or and that's probably not the right way to put it, but they are basically spirits from the other world, and they are
Yeah.
somehow associated with that whole group of beings that are generally fairy-ish in one way or another.
Interesting. That's something I honestly didn't
Yeah.
really know about them. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. If you're unsure, one sign is that they very often can be seen combing their hair. So one thing they usually have in common is long hair that they take good care of.
Okay.
And I mean, that's not 100%. Not everyone you see combing their hair is going to be a banshee, but you know, it can be a factor in identifying them, maybe.
Ah.
And yeah, what do they do? Most people have probably heard that already. They are kind of an announcer of death, either to the person that is about to die or telling them that one of their loved ones is going to die soon. And they do that by shrieking, wailing, or sometimes keening. So they're not great conversationalists. They usually limit themselves to, you know, anywhere in between that range, between these keening type of songs or full-on shrieking so that glass bursts in the area.
They actually have that power to shatter things like glass and porcelain and all that kind of thing.
Basically, yeah. I mean, they don't always do that, but it seems to be quite easy for them if they want to.
Oh.
Just they have quite a powerful voice. I guess it just comes with the with all the training they're doing. I don't know if they have lungs, but whatever they're training, it's working.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and it seems whenever they announce a death like that, it does happen. So it's not a warning in the sense that you can do anything about it. It's more like a you know, things are about to happen, prepare for it.
Okay, like confirmation in a way.
Yeah, confirmation in a way. And it seems like they, you know, because it's so inevitable, it appears that they have some kind of knowledge from the future. So we are working on the idea that they are not experiencing time quite as linearly as we do.
Oh, that's cool. Sorry, to me that's cool. The idea. Okay, I like that. That's an interesting. That's an interesting take.
One piece of evidence for that is is a variation of them, which is often found in Scotland. Apparently, it's called the Banshee, and it's a washerwoman more or less, and she is usually seen washing the bloody clothes off the people who are about to die. So they basically have the clothes from the future.
Oh.
Which could be an illusion, but it would be you know, it would be in line with the theory of them knowing what's about to come, and maybe even bringing objects from the future.
So you're saying bloody clothes? Are we talking a creature that only seems to come out with murdered ones? Is that the one that's in Scotland? Or it just seems to be a symbolism thing?
It is usually associated with war, so
okay.
often the story is often in the context of warriors and soldiers. You know, washing bloody clothes sounds a lot better than washing the clothes full of puke.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
So, yeah. Yeah, you can usually find them around rivers, wells, and lakes because water, and especially things like wells, they have a connection to the supernatural in Irish mythology in a way, and they can often be considered portals to the other world, more or less. So
All right.
that may be where they are crossing over into our what do you call it? Our reality, our perception,
Our plane of existence,
our plane of existence, whatever you may want to call it.
dimension. Okay, that's interesting because there's obviously a lot of talk right now about aliens and things, and we might get onto something like that a little bit later in a future podcast. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of talk about aliens and spirits that people see as actually crossing dimensions or some kind of bleed across dimensions. I don't want to get ahead of myself if you're going to start talking about this kind of area, but
I am not going to talk about aliens, no.
I don't quite mean aliens, but like the fact that, in fact, I'm not going to bother too much. I'm not going to ask you too much because I know one of the big questions that everyone's going to have is, aren't banshees ghosts? And yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I'm assuming you're going to talk a bit about that in a little while.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because there are reports and stories about a handful of banshees that actually, talk to people or at least at people, but we haven't really had the opportunity as the CCI to have any conversation with them, so it's hard to verify or falsify any theories we have. I guess it depends a little bit on your definition of ghosts. So they are not, quite as physical as we are. They can kind of appear and disappear and reappear somewhere else.
All right.
They can shapeshift. They are, as far as we can tell, basically immortal. And again, that depends on your definition of ghosts, because if they are ghosts and you say that ghosts are dead, then immortal is probably the wrong word. But you know what I mean. They don't.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't appear to cease existing at any point.
Okay.
And it's probably to an extent a matter of personal belief. I don't think they are ghosts of actual people.
Yeah.
I can imagine that there's some kind of thing going on with life force of people. We have encountered beings that kind of thrive on that.
Yeah. They I can see what you mean. Where no matter what you feel, no matter what your kind of belief, there is always a bit of a conversation. No one really knows if there's proper life force. Yeah, I can see what you mean. It might, how it interacts. It could potentially interact. It's a hard thing for us to measure even now.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'm afraid I do not have a definitive answer on that.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm gonna have to leave you disappointed on that one.
Well, I mean, we can't answer every single question that ever existed.
Unfortunately not.
Where's the fun in that?
I mean, there are some questions I would like answers to, but what can you do?
Yeah.
An interesting thing about them is that they are often seen to travel alongside the death coach.
The what?
Yes, that's how I reacted the first time. And it's not quite clear if they summon those or they just happen to travel in alongside them. But the death coach is basically a coach that is led by Dullahan, which is probably going to be an episode in the soonish future, because those are kind of interesting as well. Basically, a headless rider is the short story about it.
Okay, yeah, I want to know about it.
Yeah, the Death Coach, it's a black coach, and once it has come to Earth, it cannot return empty. It's there to pick up the dead. It warns, in a similar way to the Banshee, warns of imminent death. And they can allegedly be seen at times on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, although I have not personally witnessed that. And I feel like there's enough going on there that this will not be a secret.
Yeah, I can get you. Yeah, I mean, Edinburgh is one of those places where there is enough weird happenings. The CCI frequents Edinburgh.
We do. So that is just a little side excursion. The Death Coach is often seen where the Banshees are seen, and yeah, it's not good if you see one. So on the other hand, there's nothing you can do when you see one, so don't worry about it.
If you think you see one, close your eyes.
Yes.
Either you might miss it, or no, you won't see it coming.
All problems go away if you ignore them long enough. That's Blink and your method advice.
Yeah, taxes, crimes. You ignore it long enough, it goes away.
Exactly.
Just for legal reasons, that is not good advice.
Always have to suck the fun out of everything. What is interesting about the Banshees is that they seem to crave that connection to humans, which, you know, you could interpret as evidence that they used to be human themselves. They take this human shape, they more or less cling to humans and mourn their upcoming deaths and all that kind of thing. We've heard stories even about Banshees trying to abduct children, which, you know, is a little too attached, maybe.
What is with the weird, creepy creatures of the world trying to abduct children?
I don't know. But luckily, that's an exception in this case, because usually Banshees are not malevolent in any way. Yeah, they seem to be genuinely distraught when people die. And one thing I did not know before is that often specific Banshees kind of attach themselves and follow certain families. And, you know, the old belief was that only, you know, the high-class families, the pure Milesian stock of Ireland would have their own Banshees, and
Okay, so
they would never visit someone of Saxon descent or whatever the hell.
So Banshees were a status symbol, okay?
Basically, yes. I have not found that to be true, and it was probably just a way for people to talk themselves up and kind of legitimate their status, you know,
Yeah.
how nobility is about their bloodlines and stuff like that. So,
I'm sure someone used it as a reason why someone was an illegitimate child or something like that.
definitely. And yeah, it got to the point in a certain time where basically if your family did not have a Banshee, that meant you were not entitled to lay claim to certain lands, because you were apparently not worthy of a Banshee, so you're not worthy of the land, obviously.
Alright.
You see where this is going.
Yeah. It does annoy me when these creatures get kind of co-opted in that way.
Yeah, it happens a lot of the time, sadly, but that's just the reality of it, I guess.
Yeah.
The grain of truth in all of this is that they do tend to follow families, and they can get quite attached to each other in both directions. You know, at some point the Banshee gets a name and is kind of almost part of the family in a way.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like everyone else, probably a large portion of our listeners, unless they understand the Banshee, have done essentially what we kind of do. I'm not going to lie, again, obviously I haven't dealt with Banshees, if you can work that one out. But if I knew there was a Banshee in the area, I probably would be a little bit concerned and a little bit scared. But what you're saying, they just seem to be quite benign, kind creatures that just want to be around humanity.
They usually are. The only reason to be concerned is that you know that something is going to happen, but
Yeah, of course.
the Banshee is not causing that usually. They just kind of announce it, basically.
Okay.
That said, you should not, try to hurt them or insult them or anything, because they can be quite vengeful and brutal if they feel it's justified. So
All right. Yeah.
there's a story of, I forget the name. There was basically, short version is, some idiot sees a Banshee on the side of the road, tries to hit her with his walking stick. She, of course, doesn't get hit and just more or less dematerializes. And next day he is found dead with a walking stick embedded in his head in the exact same spot where he saw the Banshee.
Damn. All right. Yeah. Don't assault the Banshees.
Do not assault the Banshees. Which is kind of a jerk move anyway, but it's also not a good idea.
Yeah.
And they are also very I mentioned that they comb their hair a lot, and they are very protective of their combs. So even if you just take their comb away, they will hunt you down screaming, and you'll be lucky to even make it home.
Okay. You take a comb and you'll end up getting the walking stick treatment.
Probably not a walking stick, but yeah, something like that. And it got to a point where children were or are apparently taught not to pick up any combs they find lying around, because it could be a Banshee's, you never know.
Cool.
I'm not sure why it seems to be such a common occurrence to find combs lying around, but that's a different story.
That's a different mystery.
Yeah. The CCI doesn't usually do much about them, partly because they are, as I said, quite benign. They don't do any real harm. They don't cause any issues. And partly because even if we wanted to, there's basically no way we can control something that doesn't even have a permanent body in this world.
True. Very true.
And since it's also hard to communicate, because at least any that I have interacted and that I've heard from other wardens and other stories, they usually only communicate in these instances where there's death coming, and they only do so in this kind of shrieking and wailing, keening manner.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna be having any discussions with them either. So that's kind of the two sides why we usually don't do much about them.
All right.
Yeah, that's also why my interaction with them was more or less on accident. Over the years, I've been in Ireland and the British Isles in general, but especially Ireland, I've been there a lot because they just have a lot of let's say, special creatures running around on their little island.
It's certainly a magical place.
It is a magical place, and, in the more rural, and that's a hard word for a German, rural areas in Ireland, it's sometimes hard to find hotels or any other opportunities to spend the night when we are on business there.
Yeah.
And so it kind of happens. I don't know the full story, but there was an old lady called Neve who had a big house in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And would sometimes offer it to house wardens for the duration of any assignments they would have in the area. And, she knew about the CCI and all of that, and I don't know how that deal came to be. She had some kind of history with one of the board members, but she never revealed the details to me. And I probably should not be asking too many questions about that if I want to keep my job.
Certainly.
Certainly. And she was unfortunately, she was a riot. First time I met her, she was actually fending off a Dowaku with nothing but an iron skillet. And, you know, she was just one of those old ladies who didn't give a damn. And,
Yeah.
over the years, I stayed there a few times, and we grew to be friends, actually. I think when I met her back in the day, she was already above 80, but no, you would hardly notice that she was that old already. Yeah, anyway, I was staying there. I think it might have been the when I handled the Dowaku.
Yeah.
Anyway, last year at some point, I was staying there again, and I was kind of ready to go to bed when suddenly from outside there comes a shriek that like I've never heard before. Just an ear-piercing scream. And, you know, I have heard of banshees before, but I had never really heard one in person, and it's on a rational level, you know that you don't have to fear them, but it's terrifying to hear them. It's
I've heard from other wardens who have encountered banshees that even with the knowledge, even with the training, it's a scream that kind of just pierces your soul in a way.
That is a good way to put it.
Yeah. There's just something primal about it, isn't it?
Yes. It's deep, deep inside you. There's no brain activity involved in that. It's just pure coldness and fear when you hear that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I looked out the window to see where it came from, and again, I know on a rational level not to be afraid of them, but you know, when they shriek like that,
yeah,
their face kind of distorts, like the mouth opens wider than it should for a human being that they resemble.
Okay.
And it's kind of just like that uncanny nature about them as well that is very, very spooky, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I assume it kind of just takes on a certain quality.
Yeah. And yeah, long story short, I was about to go outside when Neve headed outside and said, "It's fine, I know her," basically. And she walked outside, and the Banshee kind of converted from the scream to more of a like a song or a lament, you know, and seemed genuinely very, very sad. And Neve actually walked up to her and hugged her, and I saw all of that from my window, basically. And at that point, I felt like I was kind of intruding on a private moment, so I backed off. But anyway, when she came back inside, she knocked on the door to my room, and she asked me, "You've heard her, probably?" And then she proceeded to tell me a bit about her family, about her story about this Banshee. Apparently, Banshee's name was Anya. And apparently this Banshee had been with her family for who knows how long, many, many generations, basically as far back as written records go.
Okay.
Maybe farther. And Neve at this point was very old. She did not have any family left. Her husband and children actually died in an accident, so she was basically the last of her family, which was, you know, she explained to me that this was also a sad occasion for the Banshee, because obviously being the only one left of her family, the Banshee could only mean that her time had come.
Oh.
Yeah, and we had a long talk that night, and she told me about her family and how they had always basically known this Banshee to be around whenever anyone of them passed, and this was now not only her end, but also basically the end of an era for this Banshee, which she has kind of come to see as a member of maybe not as a family member, but as part of her family heritage.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And she told me all about that, and we had a long talk, and she went to bed at some point, and yeah, as sadly expected, when I got up in the morning, she never woke up again. Yeah, that's kind of my encounter with the Banshee.
That's certainly, yeah, it's sad to hear, and it's certainly a part of our job, really, sometimes to interact with creatures in a way, and that kind of, unfortunately, when that's the nature of the creature, it's always a potential. Yeah,
exactly. Anyway, enough sadness. When people want to get away from sadness, where could they go?
Well, there's a wonderful place where we won't be able to tell you when you're going to die, but we can definitely tell you when the podcast is going to come out. That's the one we're going with.
Almost as bad.
That's the link we're going with. And it's
fantastic.
And it is our Discord, which you can find in the description to every one of these episodes. Everyone is welcome. You can make suggestions for various episodes, ask us about various creatures, maybe have a discussion about the episode. The more people in there, the more lively it will be. And throughout the entire time, you can just ask questions and enjoy learning about this world that you don't know about.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm gonna say something else. If you are listening to this on anything that gives you the option to give us a rating, then please do that.
Yes.
And also subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes. We have a lot still in the pipeline. And of course, there's at this point a growing back catalogue of episodes which you can dive into and find out about the things that roam this world that we have encountered.
Yes, I mean, what about hearing about Santa? That's always a fun one to listen about, and how we screwed up the North Pole a little bit.
Yep. That was great.
Or you can hear all about my colleague here's interaction with mermaids, which I personally found quite funny. Or you can talk about the...
Oh, of course, you found it funny.
Of course. Or you can find out about the bird whose poo might be able to save you in the Caladrius.
But it may or may not blind you in the process.
Exactly. All that and more to come over this time. But yeah, apart from that, I think that's us for today. So anything really left to say is thank you very much and goodbye.
Goodbye.